What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and I am working late and answering questions, trying to provide as much value as I can as I'm working on the Nootropics Manifesto. These questions came through in the last 7 hours via email, and I wanted to answer them. So they're pretty straight up questions, but I think the answers are going to give folks a lot of value. So we're going to start with number one. The first question is if you're wanting to. The first two questions are actually pretty extreme questions, but they're funny, and my answers might be useful. If you're wanting to stay up all night purposefully to get work done, what are your suggestions? What are your suggestion? What are your suggestions? Is what I think you meant to say around nootropics. First suggestion is high dose bromontane. For sure, if you take a dose that is too high for you, you'll still have a lot of motivation and get a lot of productivity and get a lot of stuff done, but it'll be nearly impossible for you to sleep. I mean, that's like 70% of people that I've talked to about bromontane, myself included. It just needs to be most people that take it in high doses cannot sleep, but they'll get a lot of productivity and you'll have a lot of motivation. The dose on that is probably for most folks, for that kind of 70% contingent, between 30 and 70 milligrams. If you take 30 to 70 milligrams of bromontane, you'll get a lot done and you will be pretty productive, but you will not sleep. So that is my answer to that question. Additionally, just take between 100 and 200 milligrams of modafinil anytime after 2 p.m. your time. And so if you do that, you will be super productive and very motivated and have like a fully functional brain for the next 12 to 14 hours, and you'll have sleep disturbance. It'll be very difficult for you to actually fall asleep, and then if you do, it'll be difficult to stay asleep. So bromontane and modafinil separately in those doses would be my answer to that question. Number two, what nootropics can I stack with cannabis? Okay, so again, I mean, look, cannabis is useful in some situations. Really, the optimal way, I think, to use cannabis, if you're not somebody that relies on it for some sort of ailment, is to smoke cannabis or like maybe ingest cannabis via an edible 2 or 3 times every 6 months or something as a brain reset in relatively high doses. The acute effects of it will probably be a little uncomfortable, but thereafter you're going to get some creativity benefits, and you'll inhibit some thought processes that maybe you don't need to have to begin with. You can kind of delete some of those processes and come to revelations about stuff that's happening in your life. But if you are going to be ingesting cannabis in any capacity, especially regularly, then you just want to focus on cholinergic nootropics. That is, those are the best nootropics to counteract the sort of disintegration and lack of organization of your thoughts that happens when you are under the influence of high-dose cannabis. So Alcar and Uridine and CDP choline together in a stack, and like 300 of Alcar, 100 or so of CDP choline, and like 150 milligrams of uridine monophosphate would be a great option for that. You could alternatively just take a racetam stack, 700 milligrams or so. You want to go high on the racetam stack of aniracetam, a gram of oxiracetam with a choline source, whatever dose of whatever choline source that you figure out has worked well for you. You could alternatively take 10 to 15 milligrams of Noopept, 100 milligrams of uridine monophosphate, low-dose choline source, and a B complex. That is going to get your brain functioning really pretty well under the influence of cannabis. And that's pretty much it. I think, if you're smart about it, you can ingest cannabis whenever you ingest it and take cholinergic nootropics or those suggestions and get a benefit from cannabis, and also have a fully functional brain in terms of processing and memory and verbal fluency and social ability, all the things that like cannabis might mess up if you're not taking nootropics with it, if you're taking those stacks or similar stacks. Number three, I cannot tolerate stimulants. What should I do? So I guess this person is referring to experiments where they have tried stimulant nootropics, maybe phenylpiracetam or aniracetam or oxiracetam, maybe modafinil, maybe bromontane. I mean, I don't really know. They don't list that. But what nootropics should I take is what this person is asking. And, for that, there's not a whole lot. There's non-neurotransmitter modifying nootropics like venpocetine just adding oxygen and blood flow optimization to the brain. And then really you're looking at like a racetam L-theanine stack with a very low dose of Alcar. So I would say something like 15 milligrams racetam, 200 or so milligrams of L-theanine, and like 200 milligrams of acetyl L-carnitine. That's energizing and stimulant-like, but you've got the racetam and theanine to balance that out. And I think that will work out pretty well for folks. In addition to that, if you're somebody that can't tolerate stimulants for whatever reason, probably because it just like makes you feel overstimulated, then consider taking racetam and theanine with those nootropic stimulants and see how you fare. Number 4, I got a splitting headache when taking paracetam at 1.5 grams. What was my problem? Well, the answer, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know I'm going to say, is that the choline dose or source was wrong. That's the answer to that question. The very simplistic explanation of the racetam choline dilemma is that racetams accelerate the usage of acetylcholine. That's just a neurotransmitter, and choline in its various forms build acetylcholine in your brain. And so if you don't have enough of it to be available for the acceleration of it, for the usage of it, essentially burning of it via the racetam, then you can run into an ice pick headache, and it may last for a minute, it may last for 30 minutes, it may last for more. So you've got to get your dose on either alpha GPC or CDP choline. First, let you find which one of those two you respond better to, and you have to get that dose right for your dose, in this case, of paracetam, or in general of any racetam. And the only way you're going to figure that out is by trying various doses of either alpha GPC or CDP choline, analyzing your response, and then titrating in very small increments up or down to get it perfect. It might take 7 times for you to experiment with those particular combinations of nootropics to get the right result. A lot of people kind of give up after 2 tries, 3 tries, and go, paracetam gave me a headache. But I promise you, if you work hard enough and do the experimentation and kind of endure through whatever side effects you might get, you will find a sweet spot, and you should not have that problem anymore. Number 5, I'm wondering whether or not Armodafinil is better or more useful to take than modafinil. The answer to that question is kind of like triacetyluridine to uridine. Look, I mean, Armodafinil is, I don't want to use the word more bioavailable, but it is more pure in its effect in inducing the modafinil effect, the effect on orexin neurons, the effect on extracellular dopamine, the effect on the inhibition of GABA, the effect on increasing serotonin, all the things modafinil does. However, it's more expensive, harder to find. And frankly, a lot of you guys have probably heard me say this before. If you know tried and true and something works really well for you, just stick with that. Sure, Armodafinil, you have to take less of it, and it does seem to onset a little quicker, and the effects are maybe a tad bit cleaner. But that doesn't make me buy Armodafinil versus modafinil. I honestly just buy regular generic modafinil from Sun or Have Pharmaceuticals, and through one of their companies that sells it, and that's it. I don't want Armodafinil, think it's very much worth it. I honestly think you're better off sticking with regular modafinil. Number 6 and last question. How do I know what nootropics are best for me? And then the guy, in his email basically goes like, you suggest cholinergic nootropics for some people, dopamine-centric nootropics for others. How do I know what's going to be best for me? Well, how I would look at that in a consulting capacity with people, with a person, is I would first ask them what they take and respond to, and then kind of just analyze the answers to those questions. If they're taking racetams with low dose choline and they're still feeling lethargy, then they're probably producing enough acetylcholine and don't need to optimize that system very much at all. So that'll give me the cue to start talking about other compounds that really don't fuss with acetylcholine, compounds that are dopaminergic, or compounds that facilitate the functioning of glutamate or serotonin or GABA or something. And that would essentially be it. But I think you also have to look at yourself and, I don't know, analyze how you are. Like, let's take me, for example. I'm a fast-spoken, energized guy, kind of just sort of naturally. And what that means is I produce a good amount of acetylcholine. I'm generally pretty motivated. to just do stuff, and that has a lot to do with my past and what I've seen, and how my parents were, and a lot of like stuff like in my life that's built up. So I never really have had major deficiencies as far as I can tell in neurotransmitter quantity, but then neurotransmitter efficiency is an entirely different thing than neurotransmitter quantity. Receptor sites and the way that they function is different than neurotransmitter quantity. So, I took NewPep for 4 years on and off to write the NewPep Pro Stack list, and I learned to comprehend information from reading books better. That's because it's cholinosensitizing. It isn't giving me more acetylcholine because I don't need that necessarily unless I'm taking high-dose racetams. It just makes the efficiency of a cholinergic signaling in various regions of my brain related to, in that case, working memory and synthesizing, information, work better. There is a guy that we consulted. Let's call him Joe Snuffy for those of you military folks. And Joe Snuffy, I can tell from just talking to him that his brain did not need stimulant racetams or modafinil or bromotain or anything like that. He needed to slow down. He was having memory problems in general, working memory problems, and he could not focus for long periods of time, and his verbal fluency was kind of not great. And that is because his brain was working too fast. So excessive firing of glutamate, perhaps excessive firing of acetylcholine, who knows? But generally, the tone of his brain function was entirely too fast. So for that person, the stack suggestions that we followed up with were generally fasiracetam, theanine-based suggestions, just compounds that are going to slow down the brain, work really on GABA and serotonin in a way that slows the brain down. For a lot of those folks that operate in that way, where they're sort of like ADD, and they sort of just cannot get themselves to focus, aside from a uridine-centered stack, stacks that just slow the brain down and get them at a level place where then they can function like the rest of us who function awesomely and can focus, that helps them. Because their problem is not that they need to be stimulated. They have enough brain energy. They have too much brain energy. They need to slow down a little bit, and in this case, fasiracetam and theanine as a combo in particular doses is the best answer for that. So finding out which nootropics are best for you are, number one, about experimenting, and then number two, it's about analyzing how you are. Picture yourself in the eyes of other people that are interacting with you. Are you functioning too fast? Do they feel like you, if you were to put yourself in their position, don't pay attention for long enough? Do you have a problem focusing? Those kind of things. Kind of just look at where you are, and if you're the opposite side of the scale where you don't have a problem focusing at all, you're really pretty good at that, but you're just like not motivated, then that might be a dopamine thing. You have to step back, look at yourself, see how you're functioning, and then determine from there kind of what nootropics are best for you. And of course, continue experimenting. Have a book of experiments where you write down your results from taking nootropics, how you felt. This stack did this to me, that stack did this to me. I modified the dose of alpha GPC 20 milligrams less. This is what it did to me. You got to be super specific and surgical to find out what works. A lot of people, again, do not want to put in that work, and that is a mistake. If you want to take nootropics sustainably in a way where you can use them surgically and over the course of a very long time and get good performance results, you got to track everything, okay? So thanks so much for watching. That has been a pretty long, super drawn out Q&A on 6 questions. Ryan at livecortex.com. If you guys have any more questions, I'd love to answer them on the air if I can, while I'm writing the Nootropics Manifesto, which is going to be a free digital book for folks just to download for free. That's all it is. It'll promote product inside of it, but the product is going to be free. If you want to support us, and or if you want to get product, the Cortex stack right now is cheap. There's 4 options: a bottle for $24, 2 bottles for $48, 3 for $70, and then 4 for $90. You can find that at the homepage at livecortex.com. If you need my help on any of this stuff, and we got 3 tiers of nootropics consulting. One is a 40-minute call with me, 15 follow-up email correspondences. I mean, we help people figure out stacks that work well for them. The next is for executives and business people. There's a 3.5-month package where we formulate stacks for you and mail them to you, and then it's unlimited calls and emails throughout the duration of that consult. Then we have another one which is identical, and that's 6 months. 6 months of custom stack formulation, us mailing stacks to you, unlimited calls, unlimited emails, unlimited nootropics consulting and stack formulation. And then last two things, you guys know the drill. If you're new to nootropics and are kind of like pondering some of these questions that were asked and have similar questions, you just have to buy Smarter, Better, Faster, and the best way to buy it is the audiobook version of it, which you can find at the homepage at livecortex.com. And then if you're a dude that's looking to boost testosterone, all the stuff I did, obviously nootropics for 12 years, but I mean, embarrassingly, I was 290 in testosterone, nanograms per deciliter. That's low. That was about 2.5 years ago, and like, yeah, my life sucked. I mean, I wasn't functioning the way that I needed to function. Zero sex drive, could not put muscle on, hard to lose fat despite caloric manipulation, all these things. Ready to go on TRT. And then I'm like, I have to figure this out. Let me just analyze the pathways, do a lot of reading, a lot of experimentation. It took me about 7 months, and then I found a protocol that took my numbers up to about 850. It's the basis of the Viking testosterone protocol, and you can find that at livecortex.com. Okay, thanks so much for listening, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Ryan at livecortex.com if you'd like me to answer your question on the air. And we'll talk to you next time.